Hey guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'm your host, Hannah, and this is Under the Scrubs. Welcome back for another episode, Goofies. I'm so thankful for all of the support for episode 1. It means to me more than I will ever be able to tell you guys. And if you're coming back for episode 2, that means we're friends, and friends follow each other on Instagram at Under the Scrubs Podcast. And they also follow and download each other's podcast. I don't really make the rules. I just follow them. All right. Okay. This week's timeout. What are we, like a week into having a new president? So 3 things I would enact if I was president. Okay. Number 1, day shift. You cannot come in and start flipping all these lights on at change of shift. Okay. You get to sit in the dim lighting until about 7:45 to give night shift a chance to get out. Okay. You turn the lights on, straight to jail. Get out of here. Number 2, surgeons. If more than 5 people nominate you, you have to attend and participate in therapy for 2 years minimum. Number 3, and I suggested this for Nurses Week last year, and I was told no. Once every quarter, we put up a donation bin and a nomination form. You fill it out with someone you got beef with. Could be doc, RN, CNA, CRNA, NP, PA, whoever, okay? They put everyone up on one of those like big circular boards, but you can donate to make your slice bigger, okay? And then you spin it. Okay, you spin it, and whoever it lands on, 3-minute cage fight. Okay, you're raising morale, you're raising money for the unit, you're decreasing issues on the unit, and you're drumming up business. Feel free to put me on the next presidential candidate list because I can do more of these. So today we're going to be talking about a polarizing topic, Kratom. Now, is this a gas station heroin, or is this a life-changing supplement that we should be utilizing? I will do my best to try to present both sides so that you, the listener, can make an informed decision. Today's sources are National Institute on Drug Abuse, Tampa Bay Times, American Kratom Association, Concordia University, Wisconsin School of Pharmacy, MIT45.com, Karen Treatment Center, and Christopher's Organic Botanical.com. And I also got to do 2 interviews. One person gave me permission to name them, and then both gave me permission to have their story told. So, Kratom are leaves from a tree in Southeast Asia. You can crush it and smoke it. You can steep it in water to create some tea, ingest it via pill, tincture, capsule, drink mix, whatever your method of poison is right there. Reported use is to help with cravings or withdrawal symptoms, like for opioids. Can help with pain, depression, anxiety. So it's thought to be in low doses. It's a stimulant. Increased energy, alertness, high heart rate. High doses, it can be more of a sedative, so like relaxation, pain relief, confusion, right? But these are self-reported symptoms that like people taking them. Studies haven't established a correlation between dose and method of ingestion. So side effects range from nausea, constipation, dizziness, drowsiness. There's even adverse reactions like mental and neurological issues, confusion, tremors, seizures, heart and lung problems, high blood pressure, decreased respirations, and liver damage. Yikes. Kratom compound works in the brain by activating these same receptors that opioids use, and so it results in effects that are comparable to heroin or oxycodone. The concern with addiction is that the 2 main compounds, mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine, activate the same receptors in the brain on which drugs with known addictive properties act upon. Studies in animal models show how the addictive potential may vary from individual to individual. So, long story short, people have different reactions, varying levels of addiction, and that there is not much known about Kratom that can make treating addiction to it very difficult. With a stimulant effect, it can be the choice for younger people, especially those in college. They actually have like Kratom bars where you can have like drinks and coffees made with it. Personal opinion, just me. I think maybe having so much unknown about this and varied reactions might not be a solid idea. And I would like to think if I was still young and spry and in college, I'd probably say no, but I was pretty stupid back then and my frontal lobe was not developed, so who knows. Now, I did what anybody would do, and I took to the internet to see what other nurses thought about Kratom, what experiences they've had, either personally or seen in patients. And it was a varied reaction. All right. You got one side of the spectrum that is, it's a life changer. I'm taking it for years. Big advocate, big fan. Okay. The other side talks about patients that's like had psychotic breaks, liver failure, die on the transplant list. They've lost loved ones. And then the middle of it is people going, what the hell is this stuff? All right. I'm going to condense some comments that people have left, but I'm going to start with the opposed side first. Okay. People have seen babies withdrawing in the NICU and labor and delivery, and it's either worse than heroin or comparable, the same kind of awful. Young people, 20s, 30s, that need a liver transplant and either die on the list or they never make it due to Kratom usage. People have lost loved ones due to seizures or heart attacks. People going through detox facilities that are detoxing from Kratom like it is narcotics, even going as far as needing ICU and ventilator support. Patients can be more difficult to sedate and control pain post-operatively. We've personally seen this. Delirium upon awakening. It's hard on the heart and liver. Psych has seen young patients that had psychosis due to Kratom. Some came out and some did not. And then there's a lot of withdrawal symptoms that are similar to opioids and the high being similar. Now, this is, I don't want to generalize it, but these are just what people's real life experience have been with Kratom. So I got the chance to speak with someone who wanted to share their story and their spouse's story as Kratom became the mistress that almost destroyed their marriage. What started out as a non-alcoholic way to socialize, Kratom was introduced to the spouse as an energizing and relaxing drink. The spouse started frequenting the shop more and more and was spending all of their money on it. When they were confronted about the cost and the money that is now being shoveled into this herbal alternative, the spouse turned to ordering online to save some cost. But now with the unfettered access at home, the need for Kratom drinks became essentially an attachment at the hip. They couldn't leave home without it. They wanted to go out to a movie or to a restaurant, and the spouse needed to step outside to make a little drink for themselves. When the question of addiction was brought up, denial ensued. Much like any addict that is confronted, deny, deny, deny. But the spouse has now started to realize that if they go for long periods of time without Kratom, it started having side effects. The long-term effects took a toll on the intimacy they had shared, hormonal issues, performance issues, severe depression that was medicated with increased doses of Kratom. Their skin started turning a dark grayish color, they started having generalized edema. They were becoming unrecognizable to their loved ones. The ultimatum was dropped, the marriage or the Kratom. Both can't exist. This then drove the addiction into hiding, stashing the Kratom in a crawl space to eventually be discovered. Addiction causes that denial that you are changing, that anything's wrong with you. So with final words, the spouse recognized the issue and agreed for help but needed medical assistance for that. The spouse was treated with opioid addiction-like symptoms and had to endure the detox. It lasted about a week. They had the flu-like symptoms, the body aches, the sweating, all of that accompanies an opioid detox. While one spouse detoxing, the other took to the internet to try and find a way to help ease this detox, maybe make it a little bit easier on them. And they were recommended different supplements, herbs, gabapentin to just kind of help take the edge off. So while physically you can detox, you also have to address the mental challenges that rise with it. So the spouse ended up actually having to be on Suboxone for 2 years and is still tapering. But magically, these symptoms stopped once the Kratom was out of their system. Slowly, they started to turn back into themselves, life being breathed back into them with the clearing of Kratom. They were able to find joy again in the things that they had once done. There are Facebook groups out there that have families, partners, loved ones that are begging for help to get someone off Kratom before it's too late. There are even before and after pictures that will break your heart. Tampa Bay Times launched an article in 2023 talking about the deaths in Florida, about 533 deaths involving polysubstance overdoses that involved Kratom, 46 being solely related to Kratom. Now, this investigation was triggered by the death of a 33-year-old man, Jonathan Dampf. Dampf was a previous addict to narcotics, so his death at first was a concern for a relapse that had led to an overdose. He had originally came to Florida in the depth of his addiction, but within months of his move, he was able to pursue sobriety and become a leader in his Fort Lauderdale church recovery program. He got married and had a beautiful baby girl. Unfortunately, pressure began to build, though, on Dampf. His baby girl had medical needs that required 24/7 care. The home was needing repairs, and bills started adding up. Depression crept up and took its hold on him. He saw that Kratom was marketed as a safe way to ease anxiety and depression. He was sold on that idea. He began regularly taking it, but in April of 2021, he sat down on his couch to watch a movie. His wife in bed upstairs, sick and watching the same movie. They pressed play at the same time, snuggled into their respective spots to watch. His wife had texted him, never receiving a response and figuring he probably did the dad thing and fell asleep on the couch, not knowing that Dampf had actually taken a lethal amount of Kratom by accident and passed away sitting on that couch. The Tampa Bay Times pored over the autopsy and toxicology reports. They looked up police reports, company records, talked to doctors, policy experts, regulators, industry players, consumers, relatives of overdose victims, and even went as far as to purchase 20 different Kratom products to have them tested by researchers. And this is what they had found. 5 packages had no information about ingredients, 11 had 0 dosing instructions, 13 had no details about potency. One of the products arrived coated with a strange dusty material, and the vendor had included a free package of powder with literally only a label on it that said train wreck. Another one had a company's return address label completely blacked out. At least a fifth of those who overdosed solely on Kratom alone had used products manufactured to be more concentrated than traditional fresh leaf form. 9 out of 10 people who had died had a substance in their system that could be harmful when mixed with Kratom, like medications for anxiety or depression. The Kratom industry doesn't issue warnings about the danger of mixing medication and supplements like regular manufacturers do. Now hear me out. We also had to put warning labels on Tide Pods not to eat them. So if you say, well, yeah, you should know that, common sense is not common anymore. Kratom is marketed as a safe herbal alternative to escape opioid addiction, but half the people who overdose on Kratom only had a known history of drug use like oxycodone or heroin, essentially switching one crutch to another. There is a Kratom alkaloid that is found in several products that is high in dosage. Bear with me here. Speciosiliatine, along with mitragynine, that were not listed on the packaging. University of Florida researchers do believe that the alkaloid has more opioid-like effects than mitragynine and could possibly play a role in the product's safety. These overdoses are blamed on comorbidities or underlying medical issues by the American Kratom Association chief lobbyist Matt Caddo. He did acknowledge that some of the victims had insanely high levels, but he deflected, saying that the victims had used it irresponsibly, so it was their own fault. But these victims are having to guess doses, and since this is so unregulated, who actually knows what's all in this shit that they're taking? Also, probably not super classy to blame dead people when there's information that's missing, and it's pretty vital to dosing. In 2016, the FDA tried to get Kratom listed as a Schedule I drug like heroin or LSD because there was this uptick in poison control center calls. The FDA has tried a total of 3 times to get Kratom banned, but every time they collide with the American Kratom Association and their lobbyists. Public health officials have recorded 2,000 fatal Kratom-related overdoses since 2021 across 40 states. Florida Poison Control Centers did log 450 calls reporting concerns about Kratom from 2017 to May 2023, while across the country, more than 5,200 calls occurred during that same period. So I'll leave you on this opposition side with one more victim story, Jessica Speranza. The 30-year-old was living with chronic pain, and she was self-medicating with Kratom by the spoonfuls. Her roommate had introduced her by bringing home Kratom power from a kava bar that he worked at. Jessica did have a previous history of drug use, and she developed a high tolerance to the herb, but she did not show signs of adverse reactions, and this was at least according to the roommate. Her mom, on the other hand, had witnessed her own daughter's downfall. She said once the Kratom started, so did the seizures. The more Kratom she used, the more frequent the seizures would occur. Jessica's health started to really rapidly deteriorate to the point she couldn't walk anymore. This vicious cycle of more seizures being medicated with more Kratom was killing Jessica. She had been rushed to the ED multiple times to be told that doctors had zero idea the cause of her seizures. Summer of 2021, more tests were ordered to hopefully give her some answers, but Jessica would never make it as she had another seizure and had overdosed on kratom and died. So then how do we see a positive side to this? Are there even people who benefit from it, or let alone even care enough about the use of kratom to fight for its legal rights? The American Kratom Association, or AKA as I'm going to call them, is the most influential lobbying group for kratom and has been able to reject the FDA's attempts to ban it. Are they doing harm to the world, or are they trying to help make kratom safer? If a kratom company wants to claim that they are AKA GMP, which is Good Manufacturing Practice certified, the vendors actually have to go through a third-party testing for their product. It requires a higher level of manufacturing and the third-party audits to ensure compliance with the program standards, and they list these approved companies on their website. AKA encourages individuals to report companies that claim to have GMP approval and currently sit with 99 submitted violations at the time of this recording. Found on the AKA website is a slew of information supporting kratom, like a survey published of 2,700 people stating that they believe that it likely has a lower rate of harm, but these results are self-reported, so that's not a real reliable way to measure. FDA Deputy Commissioner, I'm so sorry, girl, Kimberly Trechiak, hope I said that right, for Policy, Legislation, and Internal Affairs called for the FDA to rethink what regulatory framework for CBD and kratom should look like. In collaboration with the Hill and stakeholders need to be held so that the FDA can determine what regulations are needed to ensure the safety of these products and the level of oversight that will be required. Representative Jack Bergman, Republican from Michigan, in 2023 writes in a blog post for the Congress blog claiming that veterans use kratom to get their lives back on track, manage pain, and use kratom to quit opioids and reduce dependence. Jack lashes out at the FDA, saying that the three main key points of kratom have been debunked. Kratom is unsafe, highly addictive, and that there is no medical approval for its use. Now, the last one is true, and it's not debunked, but he goes on to argue, saying that, well, it's not approved, but so aren't other foods, supplements, dietary ingredients, so on. That's not a super strong response. It's kind of like when I would get in trouble as a kid. I'd be like, well, my siblings are doing it, so therefore I can do it. Now, there was a study done for respiratory effects of oral mitragynine and oxycodone in a rodent model that showed that oxycodone had more of a sedative effect for respiration than mitragynine. But, I think we need to look further than respiratory issues. We're also seeing seizures and heart attacks, liver toxicity. I think for this, we would, obviously need more studies to be done. But what are real life people saying about kratom? In that post I had made online, asking nurses about their experiences, there was actually someone who stated that they were a 15-year user of kratom. They used it in moderation, daily, never increased their dose, sticking to 1 time a day. One person had said that they'd been using it for 6 years for Crohn's pain, and it has helped with that. Another says that they have been on it for 8 years, but they stick to plain leaf and not the extract. Now, I was able to interview a woman, Delaney, who has nothing but positive things to say about kratom. She did give me permission to talk about this as she is an advocate and wants to help bring education to kratom and the life-changing benefits that it brought her. Delaney struggled with degenerative disc disease that caused a herniated disc in her neck and cervical radiculopathy. She was given the option of an artificial disc via anterior approach to be surgically placed, but like any normal person, that freaked her out. For a year, Delaney struggled with 10 out of 10 pain, debilitating agony that left her screaming in the night and contemplating suicide with her concerned husband next to her, unsure of how to help. He took to online chronic pain Facebook groups and found information on kratom, and he sought out to a local head shop to give it a try. Desperate for any relief, she took it, throwing caution to the wind for just a sliver of pain relief. She only took kratom for about a year, and after so, decided to try and taper off to see if the pain was alleviated. Over the course of 3 months, Delaney started cutting her doses, and to her surprise and relief, her pain was relieved. She suffered no withdrawal symptoms, and she's healthy as a horse now. She no longer requires anything for her pain and is able to live her best life, and she wants people to know to do their research since there are different strains that do different things and treat different ailments. Looking at the care and treatment centers, there are 3 strains that are listed. Red vein kratom is from mature leaves that are high in alkaloids. They are potent and they're fast acting. They help with pain, energy, sedation, opioid withdrawal, migraines, and arthritis. Side effects are listed as nausea, headaches, constipation, and it does say addiction risk. Green vein kratom are semi-mature leaves that are balanced in alkaloids that provide energy and calmness. It can be used for focused, mood boost, anxiety relief, and calms and energizes at the same time. You can experience insomnia, jitters, and nausea from it, though. White vein kratom is the last one that comes from young leaves and is high in the stimulating alkaloids, so as you can guess it, it is for energy and uplifting. It says that it's ideal for morning or daytime use. It boosts your alertness, energy, and sociability, but you can have the side effects of jitters, rapid heart rate, and insomnia. Now, there's also a rare, quote-unquote, strain that is yellow, but it's mixing the red and green strains, so you get high potency and high impact. I'm sure high side effects, too. I think we see this cycle in healthcare setting for some patients with narcotics, right? You complain of pain, you might be given narcotics, you start taking them, the patient develops tolerance, and they need more. Then you keep feeding this narcotic monster, then all of a sudden they're taking an insane dose that if they get hospitalized, no internal medicine doc's going to feel comfortable prescribing it. The patient's also at a risk of being labeled as a drug seeker despite the healthcare system essentially creating this. Now, side note, there are doctors out there who avoid narcotics and take other routes to try and minimize opioid use, so shout out to you. You guys are the real MVP, or GOAT, as the kids would say. So the patient is slightly detoxing from their daily dose because they're not getting in the hospital on top of whatever reason they were admitted in the first place. I've seen something like this in open heart surgery, someone taking like an extended release morphine, 60 milligrams, okay? And the surgeon's like, hell no, I'm not prescribing you that amount. You get 50 milligrams of oxy every 4 hours. Well, now you got Mima or Peepaw that's not having their pain controlled. They're coming off of a high dose of narcotics, and they're recovering from a valve replacement or whatever heart surgery they had. Plus, these side effects of narcotics aren't the great either, physical and mental. So what if we can use this kratom as an alternative if we study it more and know more about it? Because I'll tell you what, if I was taking an insane amount of narcotics and died on the toilet from a small bowel obstruction with a perforation, just throw me in the trash and tell my mom I ran away to join a nudist colony, because ain't no way. So a Factor 8 research article published by the School of Pharmacy at Concordia University, Wisconsin. It was a semester-long project where they were studying the potential for overdose and abuse in kratom. Using rats with a drug self-administration test, they used morphine. The rats were tested between kratom and its purified constituents. The rats showed more attention for the purified constituents than they did the kratom, so it was showing that it did not have abuse liability. The morphine was less self-administered with the kratom, indicating a treatment for opioid abuse, while the rats frequented the purified side, indicating that possibly the purified side is the abuse liability. The article does point out that the animal studies using purified kratom and or 7-hydroxymitragynine won't necessarily paint an accurate picture of the pharmacological profile of the kratom plant, because the other small trace amounts of alkaloids could influence the two main compounds. Second point was that many in vivo studies that used purified alkaloids administer it via injection, which is obviously not the way that we would consume kratom as humans. Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com is a website that offers all sorts of educational material, blogs, and kratom products, and they are trying to change kratom's reputation. The website owner, Christopher, says that kratom's reputation changed when smoke shops and gas stations began selling kratom, but would alter it with different or unknown substances, and that's what's led to these adverse outcomes that triggered the FDA to issue its first warning in 2005. By 2009, in Sweden, 9 people had died from kratom called krypton, but they actually tested it, which was shown to have dangerous levels of tramadol. Spice and other synthetic drugs started to become illegal at the same time, so manufacturers and distributors pointed their attention to kratom to try and make up the money that was lost due to spice and these other synthetic drugs being outlawed. This caused the companies to crank it up a notch and start cutting corners to outsell their competition, and it led to some sketchy situations. All of this is where kratom started its transition from being branded as a health supplement to gas station heroin. Now, kratom is actually banned to buy, sell, and possess in Alabama, Arkansas, Indiana, Rhode Island, and Wisconsin. For some reason, there are states who haven't banned it, but they've got cities that do. So like San Diego, Denver, and Jerseyville, you can't buy Kratom in the city. You got to go out of it. Sarasota County in Florida and Union County in Mississippi are the same way. And there's actually states out there that do have age restrictions, either being 18 or 21. In 2019, Utah passed the KCPA, which is the Kratom Consumer Protection Act, that created a standard of regulations for Kratom to be sold safely, unaltered, and honestly presented. And you must be registered with Regulator Services as a Kratom retail food establishment, and that obviously has a fee based off of the size of the facility and processing method. So is this KCPA the key to possibly creating a safer space for Kratom to be studied and used? Do we need this KCPA on a federal level to protect the citizens? The law would make manufacturers develop at a greater level of consistency and do away with the state-by-state laws or some of these gray areas regarding Kratom. KCPA would demand for pure and unaltered Kratom, and it sets a bar for the packaging and selling of it. It also provides better educational resources for those who might be interested. This would also push for more research into Kratoms and to see the benefits and risks, which in return could possibly help the future of pain management, opioid dependence, and more. So where does this all leave us? Is Kratom actually a form of gas station heroin, or is this a potentially life-changing herb if we study it right and use it correctly? Did this herb get its name dragged through the mud due to synthetic drugs like bath salts and spice, ruining its reputation and being picked up by the wrong crowd? I think a lot of what I find is negative, and just hear me out on this. There are people who have died from this, either solely from Kratom or misuse like polypharmacy overdoses, but that doesn't always mean that they were out there shooting up fentanyl and Kratom. It could have been Kratom and regular everyday meds like antidepressants, anti-anxieties, seizure medications. It is heartbreaking to know that people have lost loved ones to this or have witnessed loved ones fall into an addiction that is killing them slowly, and it's all on an herb that doesn't really have any foundational rules. I feel like we should stop the testing on animals and start trialing them on humans and see what we can really learn about it. I feel like that would help us be able to create a better set of standards for Kratom and regulate it better if we're not going to make this illegal. And I will leave you with this. Yes, there are people who have benefited from this and had their lives changed for the better, but that doesn't mean we can ignore those who have had their world destroyed or even worse, lost their lives because of this. That wraps up our episode for today. Glad it ended on such a happy note. I really tried to present both sides as best I could, but I will say a lot of what I say is negative, so maybe not the best thing out there. Maybe it will be. Who knows? We'll see what happens in the future. Now, join me next Tuesday while we dive into the history of the lobotomy presented to you by a woman who probably would have been lobotomized herself back in the 30s to 50s. See you next week.